Hello everyone. So not long ago I released a video on NI and psychosis, which, at the time that I'm recording this video, that video I just mentioned hasn't been released yet, so I don't know what the reception will be. But I've since, had discussions with my friends on the Fourfold, our Discord server, which by the way you can join today if you would like to interact with me and other INFJs, and also kin of INFJs, non-INFJs who are interested in discussing with us and being part of our community. In order to do this, you need to join my Patreon page, which is linked right below. You help me massively, and in addition to that, you get access to bonus video content every 2-3 weeks on a topic of your choosing, where I go in depth about the topic for 20 to 30 minutes. If you like that and you'd like to support my work, because I could not do it without you, see you on Patreon, okay? Well, I was discussing, having discussions on the Fourfold on our server, and it seems quite clear that there was interest in the notion of going a little bit deeper into the exploration of the commonalities between NI dominance and psychosis. The structural commonalities, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that NI is by its essence psychotic. To say so would be meaningless, since the very notion of a Jungian function is predicated upon there being a distinction between subject and object, and that distinction is in fact lost in a psychotic break or in a psychotic condition. So you understand, I'm saying insofar as you are using NI, whether as an NI dominant, auxiliary, or whatever, you are not psychotic. So it's the opposite of being psychotic. And yet, what I claimed in my last video, and what I'm still claiming, is that there is a structural similarity between the double alienation of the INFJ from external reality, from what is not the psyche, the world of the psyche, the NI world. So the INFJ is therefore locked inside the NI world and alienated from external reality until the work of the extroverted functions have allowed the building of a link, the building of a bridge, intersubjective in the case of INFJs, objective, more impersonal and objective in the case of INTJs, who are the other NI dominants in our larger family. There's a structural similarity between this and the condition that the psychotic person experiences of losing connection with external reality, right? It's interesting because in some sense a psychotic break entails losing connection with external reality, whereas the condition of the NI dominant is kind of it's the reverse. It's repairing the connection with external reality. And in both cases, we can reasonably assume that the first event happens early in life. Of course, a person may not experience a psychotic break and turn out to have a psychotic structure until much later, sometimes even when the person is in their 30s, sometimes even 40s in the case of particular kinds of psychoses like paranoia, for example. But just because, the psychotic break is experienced later in life does not mean that the structure wasn't already there and perhaps was being held together by other mechanisms until decompensation happens due to a particular event, stressors, and so forth. So if you like, what Lacan calls the foreclosure of the name of the father, which is essentially this fragment of reality that is just symbolic fragment of reality that is, not removed, it's never integrated by the person, the subject, the young child in psychosis. In the case, again, according to a kind of structural similarity, in the case of the NI dominant, I feel like there's this beginning in a kind of NI solipsism which is eventually succeeded by this connection. And it happens fairly quickly, of course. I'm not saying that an NI dominant spends 10 years in complete isolation from externality. That's not what happens. But if you think about these as images, if you think about these as metaphors, you can see how one is going in one direction, like loss of contact with external reality, The other one is going in the opposite direction, recovery of contact, repairing of the link with external reality. And there's a meeting point. There's a meeting point where they cross paths. And I think this meeting point is the source of the anti-dominance empathy with the psychotic individual. An empathy that is based in a very kind of primal sense of we are not that different. We are not that different. And it's interesting because even in my current psychoanalytic training, so we are studying, as many of us who want to become psychoanalysts or at least analytical psychotherapists, and I can already tell often based on actual discussions whether some of the trainees are interested in the idea of working with patients that are psychotic, or is that something that they don't really fancy. The majority doesn't really want to, because it's known to be very, very hard to work with psychotic patients, and you need experience and you need a lot of containment ability and resilience and discipline and insight and tact, a lot of tact. But of those that do at least manifest right now, it might change later, it's a 4 to 5 year training, this is only the end of the first year. Among those who do manifest an interest, a clear, committed and resolute interest, myself included, so far I've only come across anti-dominance. It's very interesting empirical observation. Like I said in my recent video, the double alienation of the INFJ, I think, is a very strong point of resonance. Now, another point of resonance that we absolutely have to mention in this video is the dominance of the unconscious. I mean, in some sense, when you, during a psychotic break, during a hallucination, during a delusion, including the discourse of the delusional person, one can almost hear the unconscious speaking. And this is something that Jung emphasized. He calls it invasion by the unconscious. I don't even know if we need to call it an invasion by the unconscious, but it's like there's this, sort of the inner critic that blocks, usually represses the content of the unconscious, just non-existent, it's been disposed of or is never there. And so you see the unconscious kind of speaking, in some sense, yes, like interfering with the conscious. But what is the talent of an anti-dominant now? Except one, and this is something that one of my friends on our Discord server was saying, what is the main talent of an anti-dominant if not to make the patterns of their unconscious, he even went so far as to say possibly delusions of the unconscious, or at least what would be seen by the conscious mind as delusional, because it comes from the unconscious and the unconscious speaks its own kind of language. The talent that consists in some sense, packaging these unconscious delusions, to put the matter provocatively, in such a way as to be universally relatable by other people. There is a point of contact with the voice of the unconscious. This is why I often say these days, NI speaks through us, NI guides us. NI it takes care of itself. We need to let NI decide. In a sense, we need to let the unconscious speak through us as much as possible. And this is how we feel most whole in many ways. But I mean, it is fascinating to consider that there's no better example of the raw speech of the unconscious than in the psychotic person. Of course, we consider that's too far, because this speech is almost no longer contained by the stronghold of consciousness, of conscious discrimination, reality testing, conceptualization, symbolization, all these very mature things that we do with our conscious minds. So there's a raw contact, there's a raw sort of flooding of consciousness by the contents of the unconscious. But an anti-dominance is going to know what this is. They do it differently. They do it from the standpoint of consciousness and reality testing that's intact. but they know what it is. In some respects, the process is the same. It's more a matter of, is the ego strong enough to withstand this? And sometimes, like for example, you see that in the compliant INFJ, they're afraid of their unconscious, they're afraid of their NI because their ego is weak. Their ego feels weak to them, which is kind of the same thing. And one of their fundamental fears is that if they give in, to the demands of NI, or to the demands of, or to the voice of NI, they just let NI speak through them. Perhaps their fundamental fear, the fundamental fear of the adaptive submissive INFJ, is that they'll be overwhelmed, they'll collapse, and they will experience a decompensation. They do not trust in their ego strength's ability to withstand this unleashing of unconscious content. So that's what, in fact, makes them neurotic. It's almost like a fear of psychosis. So, I will leave you with these words to ponder, because I think that they're really worth pondering. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video, guys, if you enjoyed those reflections. And don't forget that I have written 2 books on the INFJ personality, my area of specialization, as you may well know. The Ecstatic Soul being my latest book, came out last year. INFJ Life in the Modern World looks at how INFJs can find happiness, purpose, and meaning in this world that we often find very hostile, and with reason. Adaptation and authenticity combined is the key. But if you want to know more, get the book at the link below. It's helped a lot of people. Check the reviews of this book as well, The Ecstatic Soul, which is the prequel. The Soul series will have a 3rd soul at some point, a new look at the INFJ personality. This is the deepest investigation of the INFJ, the mind of the INFJ, particularly the consciousness. What's it like to be an INFJ and to think like an INFJ? If you want to know more, get this book and check the reviews as well. See you soon, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.